Dominic, thanks for joining us today for this video. Can you please introduce yourself and the organisation and the role you have at Scottish Rugby?
Sure. My name is Dominic McKay. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Scottish Rugby and a Board Director up here at BT Murrayfield. My role as Chief Operating Officer is to look after a number of the off-field functions, whether that's marketing or commercial or sponsorship, ticketing, events, media. And we also have the joy of owning and operating two professional clubs, Glasgow and Edinburgh Rugby, and I've got a Managing Director in Glasgow in Nathan Bombras and a Managing Director in Edinburgh Rugby in Johnny Petrie. So we're a governing body, but we also think like a private club owner as well.
So there's obviously a lot of KPIs involved in that process. There's obviously looking at wins and the playing side of the business, but then you're also looking at profit and turnover as well. Or is it more complicated than all of that?
I guess that the key thing as an organisation like ours is about making sure we create success. Winning cultures, whether that's on the field with the teams, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Scotland, or whether it's winning cultures off the field in terms of making sure off the field teams grow and develop our revenues. So a big part of our role, and certainly my role in developing that with my team, is to make sure that we can deliver against our commercial targets, and we deliver outstanding match day experiences here at BT Murrayfield or in Glasgow at Scotstoun. So yeah, we're all about trying to make sure we maximise opportunities for fans to have a great experience, for sponsors to have a great thing to invest in, and broadcasters to love showing our games and events.
And how does the international aspect of the game in Scotland fit into that process in terms of building brand and generating revenue?
Our international team is the shop window to not just to the whole of the Scottish population, but also to the international population. So the national team is really, really important to us, and we drive as much revenue as we possibly can through our national team, and there's three elements to that in terms of our revenue generation. One is our ticket revenue, and we're really pleased that we had around 600,000 people coming through our turnstiles last year. The second part is our broadcast revenue, and we're delighted we've got great partnership with people like BT and Sky and BBC that broadcast all the different competitions that we're involved with. And I guess the third thing, and the most important thing, is making sure that we've got a great partnership with all of our sponsors. And we're really thrilled to have partners like BT, RBS, and a number of others joining us in our journey.
In terms of the organisation itself, Scottish Rugby, it's obviously non-profit. In terms of the revenues you mentioned there, where does that investment then go once it's generated?
Yeah, so unlike a private company, all the money that we generate as an organisation stays within the game. And we're really pleased over the last sort of few years that we've grown the revenue from, I think it was around 32 million in 2011, and we reported this year around 52 million of turnover. So we've had some great growth, which we're really pleased about. It doesn't come easy, but we're really pleased that we've managed to get that growth coming through. And then we do distribute that back into the game, whether that's in professional rugby, in the national team, importantly across the grassroots. We've got 230 clubs around Scotland that we invest in. So we're really proud that as that money comes in, through our television, through our broadcasting, through our ticketing, we're able to reinvest that back into the game at all levels.
We've got a magnificent backdrop behind us, one of the best pitches probably in the UK here at BT Murrayfield. What role does the stadium play though in generating revenue for you? Because obviously you've got your commercial partners, you've got your income from sponsorship, but this is a fantastic facility to generate money out of as well, I imagine.
The stadium is a key asset, of course, for the organisation. It's the largest stadium in Scotland. We've got quite a lot of land around the stadium as well, and that enables us to do some exciting things on a match day. As I mentioned, we have around 600,000 people coming through our turnstiles. So yeah, the stadium is really important, but the rugby content, of course, is our bread and butter, but we're always in the market to look for additional content. So we're spending quite a lot of time scouting the world to try and bring in major acts. In a stadium this size, there's only certain acts that can come here and make sure they put on a great show, but we're really proud that we've had people like U2, we've had Rolling Stones, we've had Eminem, we've had a whole bunch of bands, and most recently we had the Foo Fighters and Robbie Williams. So we've got a great history of putting on big old concerts and selling the place out, and we're keen to do that, and that's an active part of our revenue strategy.
Just on your specific role, how much time do you spend on non-rugby related activity? Obviously, as you say, that's your core business as a governing body and from a sponsorship and commercial point of view, but day to day, how often does sort of rugby come into the conversation, or is it a constant thread throughout? Yeah,
so rugby underpins everything that we do, whether it's the work that we do as a team here at BT Murrayfield to grow and to generate and to develop our revenues, to fund all the things we want to do, or whether it's some of the work that I'm fortunate to do around international bodies, whether it's Pro 12 or European Rugby. We're always working on rugby projects or rugby activity. But in addition to that rugby activity, we're working with government, or we're working with other partners to bring in major events to the stadium, whether that's rock concerts or whether that's major sporting events. We're really pleased that we've got Hearts playing a few games here. In the coming weeks, we'll see Hearts play Rangers. I think in around 40,000 people will be coming through the turnstiles for that. So that should be quite exciting. So we're always in the market to try and put as much content as we possibly can into the stadium. It's a big old stadium to fill, but it's a good fun challenge.
One of the challenges of having a stadium of this size has been Edinburgh Rugby's challenge of generating sufficient crowds to create a competitive atmosphere and just getting people along to the games. They've just recently moved up to Murrayfield to play their home games there. How's that project working out from an Edinburgh Rugby perspective?
We're delighted to have moved Edinburgh Rugby across to Murrayfield, which is a lovely partnership with George Watson School, and it's a smaller, tighter, probably more fun environment for the spectators and for the players to come and watch the rugby. Murrayfield's an outstanding stadium, but it's really too big for Edinburgh for a whole season. It's right for certain games, but not for every game. And we've got a great blueprint of success in Glasgow. When I moved Glasgow Warriors down to Scotstoun, I was really proud that we've managed to take that project from being a small embryonic 2,500 crowd to selling out every single week now, 7,500 every week for a Glasgow game, and with a big long waiting list for people trying to get season tickets. So we've got a great blueprint in Glasgow, and I'm very pleased that can be modelled across in Edinburgh at Murrayfield.
Is that a transferable formula? Is that a blueprint that you can copy across directly? I guess each club's got its own characteristics and history to take into account.
Completely. I mean, the hard facts are that both clubs are in the same league. They're attracting a similar type of audience. So there's a lot of transferable skills, but one must do that in the knowledge that they have their own identity, they have their own brand, they have their own history. So yeah, we transfer as many skills as we can, but we respect that there's naturally differences. It's funny, 40 miles, which I think is the distance between Glasgow and Edinburgh, doesn't seem like a long way, but culturally is a bit of a distance.
Is there more of what you'd argue would be a football fan culture in Glasgow? Have you seen some migration across from the sort of football audience into the Warriors support base? Yeah,
we've definitely seen a number of football fans coming to rugby events in bigger numbers than at any time in our history. And that's partly helped the 600,000 crowd here at BT Murrayfield Stadium, but it's also made a massive difference, I think, in Glasgow, as perhaps people have decided that coming to a rugby game offers three fantastic things. One is you can come with your mates and you can get a ticket and it's at a good affordable price. Secondly, you can have a beer and you can socialise and have a great match day experience. And the third thing, if you're a family, you can come as a family in a nice, safe, secure and fun environment and sit together as a family, and you can sit together with the opposition. And I think something about rugby's values lends itself to attracting that newer, younger audience. And it's something we've spent a bit of time on trying to develop and nurture, that family, that younger, that female audience. So our demographic has changed, and we're quite aggressive about that because we believe that we've got a brilliant product out here on the pitch, so we want as many people to come and enjoy it.
One of the ways that you've looked to enhance the pro clubs and develop them even further has been through private investment, and that was flagged up, I think, in a meeting at the end of last year, where you asked your member clubs for permission to go out and seek external investment. How's that project progressing, and what's the model behind bringing more money into the two pro clubs in Scotland?
Well, we're delighted that we own Glasgow Warriors and Edinburgh Rugby, but it's not a cheap thing to run. It's very much an important vehicle to enable us to be successful as professional clubs, but also then to be successful within the national team construct. So we sought some advice and some support from our member clubs last year to go out and have some conversations with external parties that might wish to put some further investment in behind ourselves into Glasgow and into Edinburgh. And those conversations are ongoing just now, and these are conversations that do naturally, like any commercial programme, take a little bit of time. So we're in an exciting place and we're a positive place, but we're under no particular time frame that we need to close out any decision making on that. I think what's been really helpful is that the world can see that rugby is growing, whether that's the sevens in the Olympics, whether that's the growth of the Six Nations, or whether it's the growth of the Pro 14 spreading its wings into the Southern Hemisphere with the two South African teams coming to join us. Rugby is in a great growing place, and that's attracting a lot of interest, and we're pleased about that.
What's the current state of the commercial and sponsorship market? There's obviously lots of challenges out there with Brexit and other elements impacting on people's decision making. Has that slowed things down, or is that just a factor to take into account?
I think it would be wrong for me to say that the market is buoyant and strong. It's a tough market, but that's just another challenge for us to convince partners and sponsors that they want to part with their hard-earned cash in an outstanding and exciting sport. And I believe we've got something very compelling to offer them. The values of our sport are second to none. The product of the sport is outstanding. The quality of of the games are brilliant, and it's a growing sport. So I think we've got a great story to tell. Naturally, Brexit, naturally the challenges that face the economy across the world just now make people make some tough decisions. It's our job, I guess, sitting on this side of the fence to make sure we can convince as many partners to come and join us in our journey. And we're really pleased to announce just recently that we extended and enhanced our partnership with BT. So not only are they the naming rights of the stadium behind us, but they're also the principal partner of the national team. And to extend them all the way out to 2021, I think shows enormous confidence in the rugby market.
The market, as you say, is not as buoyant as maybe it has been in previous years. And if you are tracking down investors to part with that hard-earned money you mentioned, in a Glasgow and Edinburgh context, what return do they get for their investment? What parts are they buying into, and what's the sort of mid to long-term strategy for where that money would be used? There's
lots of reasons why people invest in professional clubs, whether that's in soccer or whether that's in rugby. So there's no hard and fast model. There's no obvious and simple investor that we're seeking. We're happy to speak to a variety, and we are speaking to a variety of different potential investors. And there's no doubt that the fact that rugby is growing and developing, and that we've got outstanding clubs. I mean, Glasgow winning that Guinness Pro 12 over in Ireland a couple of years ago was a real shot in the arm. That was the first time as a nation that we'd won anything for some time. And I think that to then be backed up by some outstanding performances in recent years by both Glasgow and Edinburgh in Europe demonstrates that rugby and professional rugby in Scotland is in a great space. And we're really pleased at the role that we've played in enhancing that.
It's also interesting the structure of Scottish Rugby is also changing below the pro team level. You mentioned recently about the development of SuperSix as a new structure for teams to develop a tier closer to the professional level. Tell us about that and how that process is ongoing.
I think the big thing for us as a governing body is that we want to make sure that we can broaden the base as much as we possibly can to get boys and girls playing the sport, and then work their way through a pathway. And as they work their way through the pathway, those that aspire to become either Scotland internationalists need to get themselves the best quality game time they can. And at the moment, we want to try and close the gap between our amateur clubs and our professional clubs. And the idea that we've floated most recently that seems to have got a lot of support is this concept of a SuperSix, 6 franchise clubs that are semi-professional, that give our players an opportunity to play regular quality rugby, that then feed into our professional teams, Glasgow Warriors and Edinburgh Rugby. So we're likely to invest quite a lot of money behind that, and we'll continue a dialogue that we're having with our clubs to try and get a number of people to put their hands up and say, yeah, we want to be part of that exciting new future of that SuperSix. It's not without its challenges. Like anything we do in rugby, there's always a few challenges around, but we're up for innovating, we're up for trying to encourage the opportunities for young people to become professional athletes, and if we can do that through the SuperSix, I think that's a very positive step.
What are the sort of timescales involved in developing the SuperSix in terms of getting people to apply for these franchises you mentioned, and then to progress that, say the teams that are up and running and playing competitively on a regular basis?
Well, the first thing we needed to do was to flag it up to our membership in all of our clubs, and we did that most recently at our annual general meeting in August, and it was received very favourably, so that was great. There's often a fight in the room, it's like a good old wedding, sometimes there's a fight in the back of the room, but actually this was very well received, so we're really pleased about that. Second thing is then for us to go to the marketplace, go to our clubs and share with them what we think would be required in that franchise to be set up. So we've got some documentation that we're just about to share in the coming weeks with our clubs. Then we seek their feedback, and all being well, we can try and get towards launching it in season 19-20. And for us, that's an achievable target if we can get the various stars to align around the clubs putting up their hand. And for us, we want to put that investment behind it because we see the quicker we do that, the quicker we can close the gap between the professional rugby and the sort of semi-professional layer.
Just looking on to further afield and more international matters, Scottish Rugby seems to be very active in the international market. There's a well-documented relationship with Japan that I think started a couple of years ago. What's the international view like? What's the landscape like to operate and promote Scottish Rugby from a brand perspective overseas and beyond your borders?
Certainly working in Scotland as a national governing body and with our Glasgow team and our Edinburgh team is very important to us, and of course we're very fortunate to have great partners here in the UK. But naturally, we're a global sport. We think globally as an organisation. So we're working very hard just now to take the brands of Glasgow, Edinburgh, but particularly Scotland internationally. We call it our globalisation strategy, and we want to make sure that we tap into as many potential partners and sponsors around the world. And we've identified some key markets: Japan and the Far East, Singapore, where we took the first ever Scotland International in Singapore against Italy, which was a great success. Really pleased about that. And of course, North America. We're looking quite aggressively at North America about how we capitalise on what is an enormous marketplace quite a fragmented marketplace, but it's an enormous marketplace from a sports rights point of view and from a sponsor's point of view, so we're spending a bit of time looking at that. And we think with the Scottish diaspora, which I think there's 40 million plus around the world that would claim to have good Scottish ancestry, we think we've got a ready-made base there to have some really positive conversations. And Japan's a great example. We signed a long-term partnership with the Japanese Rugby Union, and that was further enhanced with a further partnership with Nagasaki City and Prefecture. And off the back of that, we've had a couple of sponsorships come through. So yeah, it's been proving very successful so far, and we certainly see the future for Scotland being anchored, of course, in the UK with key sponsors in the UK, but very much like many other sports, looking to secure further international investment.
You mentioned it's generated some potential, or it has generated some commercial partnerships being based and having conversations in Japan. What does that also mean from a performance side leading up to a World Cup there in a couple of years, which would be one of the first in Asia from a rugby perspective?
One of the reasons we wanted to partner with Japan was to give our players an opportunity to experience Japanese culture and the environment that they would be playing in 2019 well ahead of time. So we've already played, as part of our partnership, 2 games in Japan. And we're very pleased to say that we won both the games, and it was great that on the second game the Emperor came out to watch Scotland play against Japan, which is an enormous opportunity, I think, for rugby to raise its profile and to get that sort of that kudos from the Emperor. So we're very pleased about that. And off the back of that, we've hosted Japan here, age grade teams as well as the national team, and we're likely to be back out to Japan ahead of the Rugby World Cup. But importantly, for 2 weeks ahead of the Rugby World Cup, our national team will be based in Nagasaki. So the team will get an opportunity to train and to acclimatise to the setup in Japan well ahead of that Rugby World Cup. So when they turn up there for the Rugby World Cup, it's like a second home. And that for us, hopefully, could be a little bit of a competitive advantage. It is a cracking group that we've got already with Ireland and, of course, with the host Japan. So it's going to be a tough World Cup, but it's one that we're enormously excited about.
How do you strike that balance between reaching out overseas and going beyond your borders and making partnerships against developing rugby in Scotland, growing participation and getting people involved in the sport? How do you balance both of those opportunities or both of those strategic directions?
Well, as a governing body, we've got responsibility to make sure that we fund as many elements of our game as we possibly can. And to do that, we've got to have the funds to do that. So we're obviously working hard in the UK market to generate as much income as we possibly can, but that's naturally got to be supplemented with international revenues because we're ambitious. As an organisation, we want every element of our organisation to be successful, whether it's the grassroots, the professional club, whether it's investing here at the stadium, or whether it's investing in the national team. And that ambition comes with a price tag, so it's right for us to work really hard to try and generate the funds to deliver against all of that. And it's been really pleasing that turning over 52 million this year, all of that money is getting ploughed back into rugby in Scotland. So the quicker we bring it in, naturally the quicker we get to reinvest it at those various levels. And that's hopefully partly creating the success that we're enjoying just now. National team recently being 5th in the world, Glasgow and Edinburgh doing really well in their competitions and ambitions to do even better. But that's going to be funded. So my team is doing an outstanding job bringing the money in and helping improve the brand, but it's a job which is going to get bigger and bigger and tougher in the years ahead, but that's one we're all up for.
Just finally, you've got a very tough autumn test series coming up. You've got the world champion All Blacks coming here. You've also got Australia, who you've had some notoriously close matches with. But also got Samoa coming as well. What's been the take-up and appetite for those 3 games up here in Scotland? Yeah,
so we've got 3 autumn tests, and often we take one of the autumn tests on the road. Our smaller fixture we might take to Kilmarnock Football Club or up to Aberdeen Football Club and maybe get 20,000 people in for that. And we've decided we want to have all 3 autumn test games this year here at Murrayfield. So we start with Samoa, then we have New Zealand, then we have Australia. And it was really pleasing back in June to announce that we'd sold out New Zealand and we'd sold out Australia. That's the first time we've ever sold out 2 autumn test games in our history, so really pleased about that. But what's particularly pleasing, I think, is that we're sitting around 60,000 tickets sold already for Samoa. So our decision to keep that game at BT Murrayfield seems to be vindicated, and it's an enormous thanks to our supporters for investing as they are in record numbers in our season tickets or investing in record numbers in our ticket sales in general. So England and France no doubt will be sold out, but to have our 3 games near as damn it sold out for this autumn is something we're really proud about. And it's it should be an exciting November, and it's over to the team now to do their magic on the pitch.